Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the V8 Veterans on your Thursday night. Proudly brought to you by RaceKraft, once again, our title sponsor. 250 kilometers will be the duration tonight. There were two drivers in the V8 Veterans community that were asking for this track to be put on the calendar, and to them we say, God damn it, why have you done this to us? To Dave Worrell and Scotty Van Loon, why? Is the question we'll be asking them tonight. Dave Haynes is going to join me alongside tonight. David, we're going to be in for 10 laps worth of the green hell and the sights and the sounds, but it's difficult old racing around here. But I will say the track actually track and car combination really suit each other. I think Dave's just stepped out to get his food, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, as we're getting prepped for tonight's racing action. The Green Hell, where is it located? It's located in the western part of Germany, just to the north of Stuttgart. And here it is, all glory in the 25, nearly 26 kilometers in track length of the Nürburgring. Opened originally in 1927, part of the track public road. In fact, the bulk majority of the track public road, much like our own slice of heaven within Australia. 154 turns make up the Nordschleife 24-hour layout, and we are going to be using the Gestem track 24-hour layout here tonight. Clockwise direction, although it's going to be a long time between getting back to the start finish line to check that one. And finally, David Haynes is going to join me here for 25.94 kilometers worth of what some call hell and others call paradise.
Somewhat of a dance with the devil around this place officially. I think officially on the combined layout it's 170 corners. It's 154 just on the Nordschleife. Here on the Gesamtstrecke, I think iRacing says 170 corners, and it doesn't always feel exactly like that many, but it feels like it's at least 80 for sure. It's like trying to learn 5 different racetracks and running them all back to back, just all linked together. So this is the race stats. Only 10 laps, but of course that's 259.4 kilometers on this massive combined layout.
Yeah, and the fun fact as we head into tonight, there are 0 compulsory pit stops that's required across the duration. The reason for that, it's the Green Hell. Things are a little bit different around here. Laps tend to take an age, and trying to configure strategy such you can get 2 pit stops in. The other reason that they're straying away from that, overtaking opportunities at their minimum here tonight. And congested fields tend to lead to terrible racing, and effectively everyone ends up back on the same old bog standard strategy. 80 litres is going to be the starting fuel for tonight's race, which is going to get you 4 laps worth of fuel. Fuel burns around the 19 litres. 19.5 litres a lap marker, getting quite close to 20 litres a lap marker. Gonna need about 118 litres worth of fuel. You can only pit on lap 3 or 4. You pit any earlier than that, you will not be able to make it all the way home. And the recommendation to drivers, get to the end of lap 4. The reason for that, 120 litres is certainly a lot less to add, and you will need to fuel save. So expect everyone probably in at the end of lap 4, and they have to come in a lot earlier. 75% race distance for classification. 8 laps is going to be the duration that you must get to. There's a little bit of a different safety car procedure that's in place here tonight, and we've got the details for you on that one, Dave.
Yeah, so a virtual safety car procedure instead of the full course safety car that we are used to. Set manual safety cars to maintain the no escape rule after a terminal crash. So race control will do their usual communication to the drivers, which is to call safety car and instruct the race leader to slow down to 80 kilometers an hour. Pit entry will remain open. Maximum VSC length will be 5 minutes, and the lead will have control of the race restart. So in effect, the race leader becomes an 80 kilometer an hour safety car for a yet to be prescribed amount of time, depending on the incident.
I believe it's 60 kilometers an hour as well, because that's the Nürburgring pit lane speed limit.
That says 80, doesn't it?
Yeah, that does say 80, but I'm pretty sure it's 60 for the Nordschleife. All right, well, we are crawling around the qualifying laps here tonight. I can tell you that there is one and one only opportunity to get a lap in here, and I've just had a quick look at the entries list. Darren Lobb rejoins us for the first time in a very, very long time. Should be good to see the Kiwi back out there. Sorry, the South African expat living out of New Zealand out there again tonight for the first time in the Gen 3 era, which will be wonderful to see. But yeah, there will be only one qualifying lap attempt. If you pick yourself up and off track, you're going to be starting down towards the tail end of the grid. Championship standings now to come our way as we start to head towards the midpoints of the season. After 3 rounds worth of racing and close to a third of our racing distance, Jordan Ross has stood atop the pile. The new entry to V8 Veterans has been quick, and he's been Mr. Consistent, picking up results just about every week thus far. 549 points stands atop of Sean McNamara. Dan Hall jumped a bunch of spots last week after a strong finish, as does Michael Whiting. They're going to be tied net even on points, 472. Could the bonus points from joining the Zoom wall impact that championship fight as it gets deeper into the season? Troy Stone Street slides 1 spot. Paul Warwick, Ken Latta plus 8 spots inside the top 10. Christopher Burridge, David Kirby and Christian Smart slides the way to 10th. Biggest mover on the way upfield, Mark Poynton, plus 13 spots, gets himself into 11th. Equal 13th after round 3. And biggest shaker was Scott Campbell, not here last week, and we'll be seeing whether or not he can climb his way through the field here tonight. And qualify can tell you...
Win some, you lose more. What are you really gambling with?
Well, he gambled that he was going to stay a little bit longer on a family holiday, and well, that eventuated. That was the reason he wasn't here last week. I could say qualifying laps were about 45 seconds or so from starting to see a few times come through, so we'll have a little bit more information for you on those. And we'll have about 6 minutes before we actually jump across to our race here tonight. So that is the championship standings as they currently stand. Who's joining us here on the Zoom wall here tonight? Will be a point of contention because 10 bonus points across the 10 rounds of the season. One for each of those visitations to the Zoom wall. You get here Tim Nicol, Dan Hall, John O'Gallen, Damien Cairns, Greg Sharp, Michael Stewart. I believe this one's going to be quite easy to spot in the background of that photo, Dave. I don't know if you can pick it out from that distance. You might be able to see it. Jeff
big.
Thomas and Ken Latta.
Bigger than Lamar, smaller than Isle of Man, so it's Goldilocks.
Yeah. Of course, the outside of that image, the Isle of Man racetrack as well. So it's the one that's quite easy to spot. You can see there is a red dot that you can see just in the middle of what looks like some vacant land. But the outside of that red dot in the top of Michael Stewart's background is going to be, of course, the Nordschleife. And qualifying time starting to come through on the boards as well. And it looks like we have a new pole position driver, which will be really, really cool to chat about throughout the duration. Driver of the day coming our way from last week. And Magnicor was Jason Bentz, who managed to grab himself a whole bunch of spots throughout the duration. Started from the rear end of the field, dived into the pit lane on lap 1 and drove his way through to just outside the top 10, grabbed a whole host of spots. And he will be making sure that he sits a valid qualifying lap in this week, I can tell you. 2 weeks back-to-back would not be something that he would be looking forward to.
Yeah, and qualifying will be super interesting out of this week because there will be a number of drivers without a qualifying time. That will be interesting around this track where you then have to wait a long time before you can make any of your passes on the lap. But congratulations to Jason Bentz with that move through the field and the driver of the day a week ago. I was in Sydney and I didn't unfortunately get to any chubby buns. My mates dragged me to the pub instead, so my loss.
Yeah, I'll be in Sydney in March, so I'm already trying to line up that opportunity to head out and catch up with Jim Katsakunis and the team from one of the Chubby Buttons locations. But yeah, again, phenomenal drive last week. Bentz has been in and around actually the pace this season, so it was just a matter of time before he managed to stick one together in the Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day. I can tell you about 3.5 minutes left in the qualifying sessions. Big note already coming through. Ken Latta has managed to pick himself up and off track. We'll be starting from through the field, and it looks like Dan Hall has done the same. Other drivers failing to set a lap thus far through the session, and there is no drivers actually on track, so it looks like our qualifying order will be locked in. Chris Miller, Darren Crosby, John Gallen, Matty Parker, Tim Nicol, Damien Cairns will be starting from the rear end as well. I think was an entry from another split, so I think we've got about 35 entries tonight. Down a little bit. And does that say to you, Dave, that the Nordschleifer, whilst popular among the absolute purists, is unpopular among the supercars community?
Yeah, I think they're scared. I think this is a real racetrack, and the drivers who aren't here are scared.
Well, it's been nice knowing you, Dave. If you wake up dead at some point in the near future, we'll all know why.
No, but none of the drivers I'm calling out are going to do it because, as we know, they're cowards.
Oh, God. Dan Yeaman was just saying something in areas as well.
Full championship standings, he says. So we've looked at the top 10 and some of the movers and the shakers, but this is what's just outside of that.
Yeah, so positions through 11 through 20. At this juncture, Scott Mackay from David Nash, Mike Point and Damien Cairns. I can tell you Gary Buckland's been a little bit unlucky, and he's actually been on a whole heap of pace of late, and he's getting better and better each and every week. Why? Because I have to keep getting better to match him on a Tuesday night league. Darren Goosey, Jamie McKnight sits outside the 20 for him, a little bit further down. Matty Parker, Brad Doble, Scott Gamble in 25th. We'll have some results coming his way. John Latham, you think winning a race would put you inside the pointy end of the field. Also, a couple of missing in actions for Latham. Matt Vanderkraan, by the way, is going to be not on pole position here tonight. I thought he was going to be, and we'll talk about that here in a few moments. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Travis Hunt had a few rough results. And the driver sitting in 32nd spot has managed to nick himself away a pole position by over a second, by the way. About a second and a half he's managed to take pole position by as we skip on down through the field. And three drivers standing on 0 points. McCune, Tannock, and Darren Lobb, who are making some of their first entries here tonight. Luke Grundell is negative points. That'll be because he's received points, but also managed to capture the ire of race control at the same time and been subtracted points for on-track infringements. Is effectively why he sits at -7. So for the rest of the drivers, they'll be hoping he doesn't show up for the rest of the season. Either way,
not a great credit score to have.
No, this is the qualifying results, and the front row takes 2 drivers who have not been on the front row in the Gen 3 era and moves everyone else who would have been expecting a high qualifying position a little bit further down. Last week's driver of the day, Jason Bentz, manages to be the only driver to set a time in the 8 minute and 29 second range. He will be 1.6 seconds faster than Matt Vanderkraan, who lines up on the front row. Jordan Ross alongside of Chris Burridge, and have a look at the gap back to Burridge. Burridge set a 8 minute 34 time, but Jordan Ross was only a 10th or so away from Matt Vanderkraan. That was the difference between front row and second row for him. Wayne Walker managed to put a respectable qualifying time here together, and for him 8 minute 34 908. Solid enough. 10th and a half further back will be Luke Allman. So that's a second and a 10th back. Michael Stewart was 0.006 of a second from starting on row number 3. That's how much separated over 25, nearly 26 kilometers. Paul Warwick will line up alongside of him, also in the 8:36.1s. Troy Stone Street 8:36.3 and Jeff Thomas 8:36.4 are going to make out your top 10. Full slide. Outside the 10, 11th and 12th, Greg Sharp from Robbie Griffiths. This is where we get to the 37s and beyond. Robbie Griffiths in the 38.2. Gary Buckland is going to be outside of those guys, 8:38.238. Stephen Varga, 8:38.303. Make up 13th and 14th. David Nash gets into the 38.3s for himself, and less than a 10th behind Varga ahead of him. Travis Hunt, a couple tenths further back in 16th. Michael Whiting and Jamie McKnight going to make up row number 9 in an all fishy row number 9 before we get back to row 10. Stephen Kennedy and Stewie Hall to make out the 20. Rob Crisdale will line up in the 8 minute 40s for a few drivers in here. Chad Lewis will be another one of those drivers. Brad Doe will be in behind these guys. And Darren Goosey out of 23rd and 24th. 25th and 26th, we're getting towards drivers that the last couple drivers to set times will be Mark Poynton and Bruce Tenick. Darren Law manages to set an 8-minute 50.486, but a valid lap time for him. And then we get to the drivers who failed to set a lap time, and there's going to be a few of these. Ken Latta was one of them. Dan Hall was the next. In behind them, John Gallen, and I believe...
So I think the gridding order that I have got would be Ken Latta, Dan Hall, Chris Miller, Darren Crosby, John Gallen, Matty Parker, Tim Nicol, Damien Cairns, and Tim Lawson. So that is more than 10 drivers without qualifying times. When it's such a massive lap and you get, in the words of, Mr. Slim Shady, one shot, one opportunity, that you do get a lot of drivers who don't get a qualifying time here because of how difficult qualifying is and how few opportunities you get.
Yeah, and the difficulty level of the managing the car across the lap as well is incredibly high. So, yeah, look, there's opportunity out there, and there's a few drivers there that I'm looking at and going, that's nowhere near some of their better times, but they did manage to stick a time on the board, and that has actually earned them a few spots further up the grid. So they will absolutely take that one. I'm looking at Chris Burridge, for example, 8-minute 33.567 in practice. So he's about a second off that. But that's managed to net him 4th spot on the grid, and Wayne Walker's even worse, 1.6 seconds slower, but he starts on 5th. So not many drivers managed to improve on their practice times, but sticking a clean lap together was certainly part of the deal that was required. All right, I believe we should be just a few moments away from starting this one. Revs are going to start to rise. 250 kilometers from around the Nordschleife, and we are off and racing for a RaceKraft V8 Veterans. Ben spins it up from the front row. Chris Burridge jumps through, and he's going to lead us on the run into turn 1. Ross is trying to split the gap. He'll send it 3 wide. Van der Kraan's got the apex. He's the only one to get through there nice and cleanly. Burridge shows the nose once again. Ross has managed to grab a couple spots. Van der Kraan's grabbed the lead. Benz goes from 1st to 3rd, and Chris Burridge had a nose ahead for the first time in his V8 Veterans career, and it only lasted a couple hundred meters, but he did survive turn 1.
Amazing launch away, but then he was very tentative on the brakes, and you know what? Fair enough, because he lives on in 4th place, but there was a couple of drivers that tangled in that opening very, very tight chicane on the 24-hour layout here. So Rob Crisdale, he dropped back a long way. Picked up Mark Poynton as well, losing a lot of spots. Couple of big gainers, couple of big losers, a lot of change already, like 10 positions gained for John Gallen.
And I can tell you, Ken Latta has got a very, very damaged front end of his car, and looks like it might be a black flag. I'm picking up 3 separate meatballs. I've got Mark Poynton, I've got Darren Goosey, and I've got Ken Latta are the 3 meatballs that we've got to deal with. And there is Darren Goosey to the side of the car. Interesting enough, Dave, the use of a safety car tonight, obviously, we're not going to necessarily need to do it. The field's gone through. It's 8 minutes before they come back around.
Yeah, I think in time those will tow without a safety car, because the whole field, like you say, is gone and is a long way from coming back around again. So you've got 2 cars with meatballs going nowhere, and Ken Latta, who's going to hope that staying out on track and doing a whole lap, 26 kilometres with a damaged car, is less damaging than getting on a tow truck.
Well, I can tell you for Ken Latta is that there is at least 1 tyre off of his car, because you can just hear, I think it might be his front right, indeed it is his front right that's been ripped off that car. So Matt Van der Kraan is going to be the first driver that gets away out and onto the ring and lead us down through there. Ross has cut his way through, grabbed the spot off the launch. Jason Benz slides back too, but he knows tonight that he's quick enough to go with these guys. So that'll be the big, big key.
So onto the tighter, twistier, narrower, more aggressively curved, Armco closer section of the Nordschleife we do go. The Sabine Schmitz curve, they've worked their way all through Hatzenbach and Hocheichen. Now they're heading up the hill towards the Flugplatz. Super fast, double right apex here. They are getting a little bit of air there. Then they need to work their way through here and get to the throttle early as you can. A few of them a bit wide of that second apex, but on board with our race leader, Matt Van der Kraan. He's got it all worked out. Jordan Ross was at all 4 tyres in the air in the slipstream as well. He's coming under pressure from Bentz now towards Schwedenkreuz and then Arenberg.
Yeah, and now they'll run their way up to the braking zone up here. A lot of bravery, a lot of commitment required. But have a look at the way that the supercar plants itself as well. I mean, you can run wide, pick yourself up a little bit of curb. It rides the curbs exceptionally well. 80 litres on board. They might already be through about 3 or 4 of that at this point in time, but watch the rear end start to squat. Now look how low it gets. You can just hear as well, up through compression and into the foxhole. And again, Van der Kraan has control at the moment. And you just wonder, is Ben surging? Is he going to try and get cheeky here? Because the difficulty of the overtakes here tonight, Dave, it's extreme.
3 cars on the lane there. A sorry sight at the start of this one. 3 cars for the lead of the race right now as Ross and Bence both get a bit closer to Matt Van der Kraan. Still in a part of the lap here where the average speeds are high. There's a couple of long straights where the slipstream does its stuff. Then you get to sort of 2/3 of the way around the lap and there's some more technical, slower, twistier, less slipstreaming stuff. That's where a good driver waits to show their pace and use up their tyres, not at this part of the lap where you're soon going to get around onto a couple of other long straights that give an advantage to the driver behind.
Yeah, it's patience, it's patience, it's patience. I'm just watching Chris Miller has got the elbows out and tried to go around the outside of Dan Hall. They actually made contact just a few moments ago as we're watching the leaders dice away. And have a look at how close these guys are. Both of them, remember, starting from the rear end of the field, failing to set a lap time in qualifying. And now the margin of what they're faced with just up ahead of them. It's going to be an interesting prospect as well, because it's going to take bravery, it's going to take commitment to get some of these jobs done throughout the lap. You can just see there is banks of traffic just up ahead of them as well. So at the moment, it's exceptionally tight at the pointy end of this thing.
So here's Miller. Another one of those drivers who didn't really have a qualifying time, but got a few spots so far around. Now you're approaching Bergwerk here. Bank's a little bit late on in the corner. Your exit out of here is so important because you're full throttle and you're full throttle uphill for a really long segment here. An exit out of that previous corner is critical. Keep an eye on how Miller does it here and how much speed he can carry.
Well, there was a little bit of conversation, and what we heard on the audio was it seemed like there might have been a little bit of a lift for Chris Miller. I can tell you, you can take that section flat. Then it comes into one of the bravest sections of racetrack anywhere in the world. How committed are you to the left-hander up here? Back to 4th gear, try and carry a little bit of speed. You can pick up the curb on the left in a supercar. Can't tend to do that in a GT3 though. On the right, just look how narrow, twisty and windy it is. And Dan Hall's now responded with a little bit more pace through the middle of the opening lap. Brad Doble will be the victim he's trying to make short work of ahead of him. But everyone's just about banked up, not really able to do anything at the moment. Try and carry some speed at the final couple sectors and get the job done down the dot in Shahar.
Yeah, because if you're not passing just there up the top of the hill, up the climb, then you're not really going to pass all the way through here. At this point, mentally, you're thinking, 2 or 3 minutes in advance to the extremely long dotting Ahur. Slipstream seems like it's pretty powerful at the end of that straight for these cars, and they've got enough gear to make it work as well. Sometimes you see a really long straight and they just sort of, the car in the slipstream hits the limiter in 6th gear when they could stretch their legs a little bit further. Vipperman, that's super understeery for Dan Hall, and the car's not going where he wants. He's losing a bit. He's losing a bit more as well, just not getting the nose in through this, my favourite section of the racetrack. Super tight, super technical, flowing, a bit like a rally stage here where you're blind over this crest, don't cut here, late apex there, really trying to flow your speed through here because there's no long straights between these corners.
I think the big thing that you can sort of say about these guys at the moment is that this takes an endurance driver's mindset, because it's about the only time you invest a lot of energy into learning this track. And these cars don't really suit an endurance style driver because the rear end wants to come around on you, and looking after the rubber is very, very important. We mentioned 4 laps into 6 laps is going to be what they're looking at for the tyre life here tonight. Touch under 120 litres to go into the car. And winding the way through here, just a beautiful section of road. That's a lot of off track there for Dan Hall, so his bonus point for getting a 0x race is already off the table. He says, well, if it's off the table, we might dip a few more wheels out there.
Yeah, and with that understeer has got Chris Miller to come a little bit closer, but it's all about this next part of the racetrack. The Dottingerhoor, the slipstream. Matt van der Kran's got 1.18 seconds, but I think it's going to dissolve pretty quickly. We're already past 280 kilometers an hour and still climbing. Jason Bence is the one who looks like he's going to be able to get a slipstream off the race leader, get it underneath the second here, and look at that, still got 500 RPM to go. You can get some immense speed with a good slipstream on the Dottingerhoor.
And that's a change of hands for that spot as well. So Bence has managed to pick Jordan Ross's pockets somewhere. So after being on the back foot and climbing his way through, he's stuck it on pole. Well, you got to get the launch on the run down to turn number 1, and Bence did not maximise that launch. Now he's on the fight back. One spot picked off. And we'll never truly know the optimal pace for a supercar around here, because by the time you get to the back end of the lap, the tyres are already screaming and ailing. And unfortunately, you're never going to be able to truly maximise what the car can do, because you've already lost a little bit of that pure performance. Bence closes in. That's the trainer cars that are all hold up towards each other. As about 11th through to 20th shoot their way down the main GP. Start, finish straight, and then you got to start it all again. What you did 8.5 minutes ago, now you'll start thinking about doing it again with a fair chunk less grip, and that's the difficult part.
Yeah, 25.9 kilometres done, and the biggest gainer has been Tim Nicol, 10 positions. Jeff Thomas started 10th, still runs 10th at the moment right there. A little bit of clean out. So maybe it's only +9 for Dan Hall, +8 for Tim Nicol, and I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, about the iRacing server, there was a couple cars in the middle. That's where race control and such slot in. Of course, not taking part in the racing event. They do not get classified, but they do still count from an iRacing statistics point of view. In the meantime, though, that's Tim Nicol, as we watch on board, sits 26th on the row. And 35 drivers was the final count of drivers to take part here tonight. So he's climbed his way through past a few of those in the 26th spot, and there's the big chain of cars in behind him, and that's what it looks like on board the Tim Nicol sim rig as well. Oh, he's got a faux pas done for me. I don't know if you can see it there. Bottom left-hand corner of his screens there, David Haynes. Are you a taskbar guy or a no?
Look, I'm a no taskbar guy when you've got iRacing up, but you'll select whatever window settings will give you the best performance. And if running iRacing in a full screen but windowed, if that makes any sense, gives you better performance, then I could live with that if it meant 5 extra frames per second.
Rob Crisdale's going to pick himself up a drive-through penalty for all that happened on lap 1. We are 10 and 11 minutes into racing here tonight, and we're only on our second circuit. And we're never going to say that again for the rest of 2024. Sorry, 2025. I keep forgetting we've got to add 1 to the end of the year.
You had to date and sign anything yet this calendar year?
Kind of. I do have to put a date in, but I have a macro for that, so I don't actually have to look at what the date does.
Right, that's going to help you out. Nothing for the race lead. Jason Bence is closed in on Matt van der Kran, right with them. I think it's going to get strategic here until those top 3.
Bence has just fired it down the inside, and now he's going to try and pull alongside. Can he get the drive out the other day? I can tell you the Van der Kran had elbows out the other day in another league, and it all ended in tears down the bottom of the hill right down here. This time, Bence will back out, and Jordan Ross will get to sit on and play witness to everything that's going on ahead of him. So they're being a little bit cheeky, they're being crafty. Bence is clearly faster at this point in time, but he's got to be smart about it. You said strategically, is it worthwhile saving some fuel? Is that what you're thinking here, Dave?
Yeah, so maybe I got to take it back. Bence isn't going to be particularly strategical, but I reckon in Jordan Ross's position here, if you see first and second side by side, and you're pulling away from 4th, 5th, 6th, it's worth it to be strategic. Look at that, another 50-metre coast in here. So Jordan Ross will be looking to save his tyres, save his fuel a little bit. The lead's going nowhere away from him. There's no threat behind just yet at the moment. So he can play that game. Jason Bence wants to see if he can lead this. And if he's got pace through that section at the top of the hill from Wipperman down towards Stefan Beloff S and the Flansgarten, then maybe you do want to lead.
Well, he just bounced over the curbs on the left and the right for Jordan Ross, and that'll be definitely an incident point. So there'll be no clean slate for him here tonight. You can just see just anked up they are as it currently stands. Just trying to grab with another. And interesting note from lap 1 as well. We had 3 cars up to tow back to the pits. Darren Goosey, Mark Point, and Ken Latta. None of the 3 of them have resurfaced from pit lane yet. They're all still on lap 1, and they're going to be a mile and a half behind the field. And has had some sort of drama here at the moment. That means he's going to have to fuel save the back end of this race. If he pits at the end of this loop, he's going to make the end of this lap.
That car does not want to turn left, as evidenced by the steering angle going on. It didn't want to brake. Yeah, look at all of that. Left hand down. He's got to do to stop the car from turning right, which is what it wants to do. So turning left, not what it wants to do. There's a nice cafe just outside of that sound barrier, but from inside the car, Damien Cairns can't see that today's special is meatballs, mashed potato, and red cabbage.
It's special at the moment, and that's how it just tripped over the curb up into the fence.
Potatoes, but a bit mashed.
Yeah. A lot more bangers and a lot more smash out of that one for Damien Cairns.
So it's understeer on the way in, then he gets up on the curb in the grass and it becomes oversteer and spins him around into that Armco that this racetrack is so famous for. So the balance is weird all the way around this racetrack based on the camber, based on when you're sort of getting light over a crest and then you sort of load up a little bit in some of the dips. And it's an example. It's not, oh, this car is always super oversteery. It's like, no, sometimes the front doesn't do what you want either.
Yeah. And driver assistance. You know, I've actually been talking to a few people over some of the last couple of weeks, and the conclusion that we came to is that the drivers who seem to have found a little bit of pace, and I'm probably a good example of that in the Gen 3, Porsche Cup drivers tend to do really, really well on this new car. Okay, our producer is just noting a few different things, and it's that Ken Latta's managed to make his way finally back out of pit lane, and Darren Goosey also back out of pit lane.
They have black flags.
Fortunately for Darren Goosey, yeah, there is a black flag there. So speeding on the pit lane exit, I'm going to say, probably not re-engaging the pit lane limiter. So Bruce Tennick as well is in the wars at the moment, and there is a bent front end on that car, and this will tell the story. It looks like Rob Crisdale was alongside of him, and they just tripped over each other. And Damien Cairns also just popped up on the comms, and he's going to call it quits. Oh boy! That rejoin was not tidy, and I think Damien Cairns is also going to be given the freedom.
Because he's at the tail of the field now, isn't he? There's no one at all near him. You've got those other drivers that towed that are 8 minutes behind him, and the whole rest of the field is in front of him. There's a 5-6 minute bit of empty racetrack right there around Matt Cairns. Around Damien Cairns at the moment. There's no space between Matt Vanderkraan and Jason Bentz, though.
Trying to mash up the two names and get them together. Well, they're on the run down the Donington, and Jason Bentz has finally managed to make the momentum come alongside Matt Vanderkraan as they exit the Donington. Bentz looking for his first win in a very, very long time. Vanderkraan looking to stitch together a strong result on a night where he has got a supreme amount of pace, and Bentz is going to take the lead at the conclusion of lap number 2. They'll pull the cars up, flick it to the right, back to the left, get the power down, and 2 laps now in the books for our front 3. Margin back to third, 4th spot. Chris Burridge is actually hanging on quite well, 6.5 seconds or so. That is actually a job well done, and you would have to say, for Chris Burridge. And Jason Bentz goes ahead and sets the fastest lap of the race, 34.958. So if you were wondering how much the tyres have fallen off, that's why.
Yeah, a bit of battling up front as well, though, helps some of those other drivers in 4th, 5th, 6th stay within relative closeness. But even with the battling between Bentz and Vanderkraan that we've seen on this lap, they're still a little bit quicker than the whole rest of the field. Paul Warwick and Luke Allman finding a tiny bit more pace than Chris Burridge. on that previous lap, so they get a little bit closer to him and might have just reached that crucial slipstreaming window. And Wayne Walker ahead of Robbie Griffiths in 7th and 8th. Neither of them have a valid fastest lap of the race, so both of them were off track on the lap they just completed. Michael Stewart as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those nights where it's probably a cast of thousands that are picking up those instant points. Fun fact, I've just taken a quick look at the front end of Matt van der Kraan's Angry Birds Racing entry, and right across the front it says, "This is a conversation starter." So does that mean that he's starting conversations by using the bumper? As actually we're going to see a move on for second place at this point in time. Jordan Ross got to his inside. Can he get the drive out the other side? Ross does. And van der Kraan's going to hang on for a little while longer. No more. And change for second spot.
He could put it to the rear of a dirt sprint car and it'd be a bump starter.
Yep. There you go. Apparently, conversations need a good bump start. Is the way the Angry Birds Racing Machine's going about it.
This is not bad for Matt van der Kraan either, by the way, so long as Jason Benz and Jordan Ross don't get away. If he can just calm his driving down a little bit, not need to look in his mirror, sort of try to flow the speed through all of these places where instead of being, aggressive with the inputs, you just roll a little bit out of the throttle early, roll the car into the corner, roll back into the throttle, smooth with your inputs, smooth on the tyres, save a little bit of fuel, and still make sure that you get that slipstream in the critical places, like off this section of corners and up towards Flugplatz, around towards Schwedenkreuz, up the hill from Bergwerk, and then, of course, the critical Dottinger. You can still be right in this race rather than having to lead the way and drive in your mirrors and maybe drive in a way that's not comfortable for you. That's not comfortable for me to watch.
That's a shot.
Man.
That is a shot. Oh boy. I'm really, really interested to see what commentary partner Jake Sperry's got to say about that shot on Monday night, actually. Because that will be entertaining to say the least. Have a look at it in replay. Seeing it once wasn't enough. How about supercars getting airborne in slow-mo? And the motocross rider in me comes out and says, yeah, boy, that's a wheelie.
Jason Benz is going to lay down his performance right now, more than a second clear of Jordan Ross, but like I say, we're just starting to reach a couple of the points where there is some pretty powerful slipstreaming to be had. But this could be in-lap for some if they want to pit early. I'm not sure that's what Benz, Ross and van der Kraan are going to want to do, though, is do a whole lap around here in a bit of traffic, because you will lose time, definitely. So you got to push on best you can, but probably really look to extend.
So it might be time to take a little bit of a look back at what will cause that chaos back on lap 1. And Bruce Tannock's been adjudicated to be at fault in the incident with Ken Ludder. And we're going to go digging and see if we can find anything from the lap 1 incident. It's going to be a little bit difficult given the number of incident points that people are picking up here tonight, unfortunately. I've just seen Matty Parker hit the barrier quite hard as well. And he's just come out of the pit lane, and I think that was his fast repair use was the reason he was in the lane, and that is going to be probably night over for Matty Parker. Yeah, have a look at the damage to the front left.
It doesn't want to turn right, so yeah, that's the damage done with the suspension and the alignment all on the left-hand side of the car. And this is how.
Tyres at the front of that car, although they'd be just about up to temperature by that point. In fact, they should be more than up to temperature by that point in the lap, but just a little hot in. Sometimes it can catch you out with the extra grip that you've got and you just charge it in a little bit too hard. What I'm a little bit surprised about, and it might be a struggle to adapt to the new hardware, Darren Lobb has now got significant damage to the front end of his car, and Matty Parker just went by him. No, sorry, Matty Parker did not go by him a few moments ago, but yeah, this machine was in the room.
Quite second hand all around.
So we're going to be digging through the archives here and find what we got from, gee whiz, 20 minutes ago? That went quickly. Lap 1 was 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, this place is a weird time sink because 2 laps go by and it's 15 minutes. It all feels fresh. Ooh, yeah, that's just itty bit clumsy there. There's other stuff happening before that as well, sort of at turn 1 rather than turn... Ooh. That's all of the smoke. It's not a new pod.
So we're just going to be keeping our eyes towards the top right-hand corner of that shot. You just see everyone sort of feeding down 4, 5 wide in, and then it sort of chokes up, and that's where the car's been rotated a little bit earlier than that. In the bottom of that corner, which we're trying to go at the moment, that's where Pointed got rotated. Unfortunately, it was both fishy cars. It was Chad Lewis that got into him, and that's down on the outside, and that's where Ken Latta got involved. Oh, there was a gap. You can see what Bruce Hennick was trying to do. That onboard shot tells a really, really good. Oh, the two frog leap juice guys follow each. They were both looking for a gap to get around everything. And unfortunately, Crisdale follows Poynton in.
Turned him around the right way though. Not sure what either of them wanted though. That's big damage front, big damage rear for Darren Goosey, and that's all drums that he had right front. No bueno at all, and that's why he pulled off. Spreading out at the front of the race here, by the way. So Jason Benz has basically broken the toe to Jordan Ross. Both of them are leaving Matt Vanderkraan for dust, but still, with that pace, getting ahead of Chris Burns, now more than 10 seconds behind the race lead. So Jason Benson, he doesn't need to worry about too much on the dotting of her this time around. It's clear enough that it's don't even look in the mirrors down the longest straight, one of the longest straights in all of circuit racing.
Yeah, and it looks like he's got everything just about put together. End of the third circuit of the Nürburgring Jessamine 24-hour layout. There'll be one more time around before they'll come to the pit lane through 120 litres worth of juice or thereabouts into the car. And he's Burridge on his way in. Gee, that's brave. There's a few of them coming in. These guys are going to fill the tank, and they're going to be about 5 litres short.
Got to remember that on the Grand Prix layout, it's an 80 km/h pit lane speed limit. Here on the Nürburgring combined Gesamtstrecke version, it's 60 km/h only. So it is a big stop. Entering that pit lane there as well. Few drivers will come through. There's also a few with black flags and other things that we expect to see trundle through. Not a whole lot of pitters. Everyone's probably looking at the end of this lane.
We love what they've done over the recent couple of years as well, improving safety at the ring and setting new slow zones and not having to deploy safety cars to slow 60s is slow 80s, allowing racing to continue to happen at the same time as maintaining safety for both road crews and cars. But the accidents at the Nürburgring when they happen are very, very heavy. Have a look at all the gravel that's off the road when you get down to the bottom of the hairpin as well. Jeff Thomas chasing down Michael Stewart. These guys will be the beneficiaries. A couple of pit stops ahead of them. Luke Allman falls through the field. Nash, Troy Stone Street as well.
Michael Stewart's got his water bottle there, and Jeff Thomas has coffee on his bonnet. So remember to stay hydrated. I like a bit of both.
Tell you what, big Daytona 24-hour weekend over the weekend. I'm still not recovering on sleep, so I'm thinking coffee for me even at this hour.
It's good. It's magic bean potion, so it's good for you. Who this helps, I think, is Paul Warwick, because he was closing in on Burridge, but didn't look like he could pass. Now Burridge pits and Warwick's in fourth, bit of clean air in front of him. We've saved a little bit of fuel on the previous lap or two, but now can demonstrate whatever pace he may have to try to stay ahead of any of the quicker guys like Wayne Walker or Robbie Griffiths, or indeed this battle, Michael Stewart and Jeff Thomas.
Well, interestingly enough, Stephen Kennedy's the next car ahead on track for Chris Burridge, but he's 15 seconds down the road, so you're right. Burridge has actually popped out in a nice hole in traffic. Now, for those front three, they sort of couldn't pit because they would have popped out basically at the end of the train, and that's where they would have gotten held up with all their fresh tyres, so it wouldn't have worked out for them, but it can for Burridge. The problem I've got again is that fuel save, and to get 7 laps in around the launch lap, and they completed 3, they need 7 to go in the V8 supercar with the burn that these guys are putting out is around the 19.7-ish sort of range in terms of fuel burn. So the problem with that number is that is going to be above the 133 max tank size, so it's going to be about 137.9, so they're going to save around about 5 litres, just a lick under 5 litres across 7 laps. Doable, particularly with the lap length. It's a little bit to ask.
So maybe Director Dan will have to show the correct positions gained graphics once again, but this is some guys who've gained a whole lot. Chris Miller, Chad Lewis, they're ahead of a whole bunch of drivers that they've worked their way through, but also Dan Hall, I think, has been working his way through that as well, so is Darren Crosby. So there's a few drivers here right in the mid-pack that started at the back and approached the halfway point. They're in this mid-pack and they could still work their way towards the top 10, because you absolutely never say never at the Nordschleife. And for the pace Chris Miller's had, it looks like Chad Lewis has just got his match and is putting a lot of pressure on right now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a group just ahead of these guys as well. Gary Buckland's at the tail end of it, contains Michael Whiting, Jamie McKnight and Greg Sharp in it. So for those guys, they're continuing to battle away.
It's an interesting distribution of the cars on track at the moment, because you've got your top 3 and then almost 30 seconds back to where, you know, the mid-pack is, and then 10th through to 23rd is super tight across, you know, 20-ish seconds or so, but then there's 30 seconds from them to the race lead. So there's a couple of really quick outliers, but really good racing right in the middle of the field, and this is part of it.
Just got to keep your eyes on it. Sit, watch and wait and see what comes. It's interesting to note, actually, because Dan Hall was actually ahead of Chad Lewis, so they've swapped positions, and I've just seen a puff of smoke in those couple of corners these guys have just gone through. It sort of suggests that someone up ahead just had a moment, but I'm not necessarily seeing exactly who that was. So next group's Gary Buckland, but Buckland's still attached to the back end of that group. And looked like it came some might have just been some previous witness marks from something that's happened earlier in the race. Jamie McKnight's looking a little bit racy on the back end of Greg Sharp at the moment. As these two get closer and closer as they climb their way up the hill, and you just sort of see there's another 3 cars just ahead of them. Travis Hunt is right on the rear bumper of Stephen Varga, and they've both caught Jeff Thomas. So Jeff Thomas has had a fair few issues on this lap of some description. So a couple little battle packs starting to form up. Whiting gets a touch closer. McKnight has a huge old lock. Oh, what an opposite lock on board. 027 machine through the right-hander, and now they'll dip in through the carousel.
What you don't want to do is carry so much speed through the carousel that you pop out of that groove, because then you'll really lose some time. So you've got to stay nice and tucked into that groove, wait patiently for the exit, and you can then get back on. Carry the speed uphill. Tough to do though.
Greg Sharp, boy, talking about tough things to do. Get it off of the circuit and then back on. So he was very wide. These guys are not calming down. They are playing for keeps, and they are still making time. Even with all those moments, they're making time on Travis Hunt and Stephen Varga just ahead of them. And Jeff Thomas has made a little bit of time on these guys yet again. So it's season sores. Every driver's got a bad sector around the Nordschleife. You cannot have all good ones. It's just impossible. with the length of the lap. And Thomas got through his bad sectors early in the lap. Now starting to cover.
Into the race lead. It's just lost a whole chunk of time and quickly. So Jordan Ross is all over him. The slipstream was previously broken. They're getting towards the end of the lap here, just approaching Schwalbenschwanz right now before the Kleines Carousel. And on this in-lap, Jordan Ross will be all over Jason Bentz. And I think it's not Jordan Ross finding another gear. I think Bentz has had a couple of little mistakes. He pops out of the little carousel early there as well. Ross is just doing the strategic thing. You hold 2 car lengths back here so that you get that big run-up. You don't want to be right at their rear bumper just yet. Hang 2 car lengths back, because now Jordan Ross in an absolute slingshot.
Yeah, and the critical factor is getting the overspeed, not just getting along the side, and then all of a sudden you lose all your momentum and you poke your nose out. No, you need the overspeed, but you've got to be close enough to make sure that you can make it happen as well. Is he going to run out of space so they don't injure her as they get to the foot of the hill? Now they'll start to climb up. He's going to run out of space. He's not got the speed, I don't think. I think Bentz is going to hang on to this one. Is he going to pop out? No, he's going to lift out. Ross elects to follow. And as these drivers run down into the bottom end of the pot, as the fuel starts to drain low, you'll see the rest of the field jump into the pit lane this time by. Battle on for the race lead. Who's got the fuel through the pit stop? And the other thing to consider is maybe Ross didn't need to get the overtake done there. Maybe he's just watched, he's waited, and as they dive into the pit lane, maybe he'll pounce.
Look how long the braking zone is just on the pit entry. You need like a 300-metre brake marker board to get down to 60 k's an hour, and everyone who hasn't pitted is in exactly as we might have expected. Jason Bentz, Jordan Ross, Matt van der Kraan, the drivers you're looking to see gain now, Chris Burridge, Luke Allman, Troy Stonestreet, others like that. This is going to be a question if Jordan Ross has saved a lot in his first 4 laps, that he can jump Bentz.
Yeah, so he's just going to have to sit and watch the pit stops. Burridge has just popped out on the Donjaher, so Ninga's now got his Ford Mustang really wound up, and he is certainly going to have a crack. Well, the drivers in pit lane got to say for themselves in terms of strategy. But Burridge was about 6-7 seconds off the lead group when he pit. He has got that undercut on, but it's going to have to be a very, very strong undercut. And they were crawling all over the road. He's got a lot of race to do as well. 3 laps in, 7 laps to do on the tyres. So he's going to be ailing on that final lap of the race if he can get the job done. Where's our race leader? Still in the pit lane. So this is going to be tight when they get to the exit. Bentz is now out. Jordan Ross actually drops a fair way back off of him through the pit cycle. You expected him to get close. Van der Kraan has actually jumped the both of them. Sorry, not jumped the both of them. He has jumped ahead of Jordan Ross, and Burridge will attach himself just to the rear end of these guys, but his tyres will now be second-hand.
It seems like he's not going to have enough fuel because he only took 37 seconds of it, whereas Bentz has come out in the lead of the race with 48 seconds of fuel. Van der Kraan's gone 46. Jordan Ross has gone 52. This looks like 2 stops from Burridge.
Yeah, there's no way. Surely not. Surely not.
And a couple of those other guys that stopped a lap ago, Troy Stonestreet, some others like that, it's looking like maybe they were a bit short on the fuel as well. I'm now reassessing whether everyone who stopped at the end of lap 3 is going to make it. I don't think Burridge or Stonestreet will.
No, so they might be planning to come back in, and they're looking for a little bit of an undercut to sort of help them with a little bit of track position and try and extend that margin. The critical factor for their strategy was getting the clear out on that most recent lap, which they did do. So now shuffling things around. Allman's jumped to 5th out of all that. He is now just ahead of Paul Warwick, so he's slotted down nicely in the middle. And again, so Chris Burridge has taken in the realm of 94 litres, and remember he's going to need an extra 20 on top of what we're looking at there. So there's no way that he's going to make that. Actually, sorry, it's going to be even more than that. So no, my apologies. It will be an extra 20 that you'll need to add on board. I was thinking maximum totals. So yeah, there's no way the Burridge can make it from there.
Actually, you know when Brock was putting crystals in the engine bays? Oh, he can't make it from there.
Oh boy.
Man, that doesn't help at all. To try to align the molecules and give better fuel economy. Maybe the SimSpeed badge right on the the intake there is going to align the air and give him better fuel economy.
It's 20 litres. 20 litres worth of fuel economy, though? Is a fair bit of an ask?
If the SimSpeed sticker adds 10 horsepower, surely it can, save 2 litres a lap. I think he's in a bit of trouble here, but it's an interesting strategy, but one that he's maybe undone a little bit with that mistake we just saw a graze on the Armco. And what he'd love is to be in the tow of Matt van der Kraan and Jordan Ross just up the road. That could help him save a little bit. That could help him be quick in this middle part of the race for him. He's not quite there.
Yep. And Jason Bents will now lead with about a 6-second margin. And just a whisker under 6 seconds, so that margin's now played itself out really, really nicely for him. I can tell you Luke Allman's now just been caught by Paul Warwick, so we'll see those two with 25 kilometres worth of differing tyre life. An interesting battle to keep an eye on.
I've got 46 seconds of fuel for Matt van der Kraan stop, by the way, so just a tiny bit less than Jason Bents, but a bit more than Jordan Ross. That's not what I meant to say. 46 seconds for van der Kraan, 49 for Bents, and 53 for Jordan Ross, who's obviously taken a fair bit of fuel, even though he should have been in a great fuel-saving situation in the first stint. He's taken a fair bit. He'll be able to be racy right now, but is the car going to be a bit heavy? Could he have had more track position? Could he have been closer to Jason Bents right now?
Well, is this also Matt van der Kraan's just throwing the dice, right? And he's just trying to prop him up, see if he can snag a second. And the other side of this coin is if, he all of a sudden, he does get past, well, he just goes, all right, sweet, well, I needed to save the fuel anyway, just accepts third spot. So, I mean, van der Kraan was always in for a podium, provided he kept the car on the track, and this sort of just locks it in.
One stop for everyone. Aaron Crosby, Chris Miller, still pretty big gainers. Robbie Griffiths, decent gains. So has Ross maybe brimmed it instead of taking 120-ish litres?
Well, yeah, he could have added way too much fuel. So, that'll change things as well.
He's in a really good position. He's in a really nice Aussie.
Well, that'll mean if that's the case, this will be a head-to-head fight as well, which will be interesting to keep half an eye on.
I guess on the fuel taken that van der Kraan's gone for 117 litres, 124 litres for Jason Bents, 133 at the top of the tank for Jordan Ross. Goosey is back on the lane for his second time. Matt Parker, I think, is either done or towing towards the lane. We've had Damien Cairns through the lane for the second time as well.
Darren Goosey has an iRacing penalty, so that'll probably be for speeding on the way up, potentially crossing the pit lane exit line, the white line. The other battle that we're keeping an eye on was this one between Paul Warwick and Luke Allman. Luke Allman coming at the end of lap 3, so he has some fuel saving to do if he can make it. And Paul Warwick has got 1 lap fresher tyres. This will just be frustrating Warwick. And that's the thing about the Nordschleife. This is not a track to get frustrated. This track is all about patience. So what's going through the mind of Warwick at the moment? Is he just sitting there going, just gotta wait?
Well, you've got to be 2 car lengths back coming onto the Dotting Hoor. So you're not going to pass through here, this sequence of corners. Heading downhill with double apex left and then into Brunchen, famously one of the YouTube corners right about here. I've seen many a thing like work vans getting up on 3 wheels or BMWs indicating crazy things on YouTube at that corner.
Oh no. Oh, Dave, that's a good one. That's a cracker.
I mean, it is, when they enter ABS and it does it automatically, but
You know, I was watching a stream earlier today. It was a Florida man driving a BMW. I literally said to the man, you know, this is the perfect opportunity for memes and absurdity to abound. A man from Florida driving a BMW. There's no crazier driving circumstance on the internet.
Remember to Google Florida man plus your birthday for a unique Florida man story. Mine is on 6th of May, a Florida man stabbed a Jimmy John's employee because his sandwich was not freaky fast enough.
I remember mine being crazy. Oh boy. And have a look at this for fighting away. And all of them in very, very similar dress. As the gentleman car will eventually give way. I think that was Jeff Thomas yielding to Jamie McKnight and Michael Whiting. Quick look at a replay of a couple passes that were just made to set all of this up. So this is Varga and I think Jeff Thomas. And Thomas ran a little bit wide. That'll give Varga the opportunity to step his way through.
So filthy tyres and no speed. Jeff Thomas is like, I gotta let my teammate go, and then he's offline, his tyres are still dirty, and he's like, oh. Around the outside goes one, and then you've got a really high speed out of Stefan Beloff S, and he has to yield another one. So one mistake costs a big handful of positions there for Jeff Thomas.
That's the difficulty when you get out of rhythm on the Nordschleife. Very, very difficult to get it back. And probably worthwhile jumping back live to have a quick look at that battle pack as well, because they are all still line astern. And brewed coffee. I do wonder if they make sandwiches, because they're making one with the fishy cars right now. That is a fish sandwich.
Apparently it's force feedback issues for Jeff at the moment. Might have led to that first mistake. Might be making things difficult for him. Steve was actually meant to be spotting for Jeff, and then made a mistake, registered for the wrong thing, and couldn't get it to come across. But he said, chatting with them, keeping an eye on some of the strategy, but what's that doing?
I just heard Wayne Walker just on the radio. Robbie Griffiths as well. So something's just happened to Wayne Walker. And Robbie Griffiths, I think, might have been rejoining. So something just happened between those guys. This is the run down to the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. I reckon Robbie Griffiths had some sort of issue of some description that's just led to that one. Because Walker apologised on the in-race radio. And the two M1 racing cars in the swap position.
Bit of multi-21, Seb, going on there. Fair enough, because I think Kennedy's on the two-stop strategy.
Oh, Warwick still in behind Luke Ullman. Finally gets the job done, gets it turned in nice and accurately, and straight line drive out gets the job done at turn 2. Finally gets clear, and now he's got a little bit of free air to do something with.
Yeah, he can go ahead and get real gone with that. This is second and third. They're dropping just a tiny bit away from Jason Bentz. Lost about half a second to Bentz. Still Van der Kran ahead of Jordan Ross. Clean air pace. Bentz seems to have them, but when there was pressure on him, Bentz had a mistake or two. These guys were able to use the slipstream well, but they don't have that now. And Bentz can really manage it. If Bentz is looking at his fuel after a lap since the stop, he can definitely find ways to save that aren't going to cost him 8 seconds, and he can keep that advantage and manage just a little bit. Van der Kran and Ross will have to pull out a lot of speed from their back pocket to get closer to Bentz.
At the moment, Jordan Ross is just forced to just sit and wait for the mistake and the opportunity and make sure that he's close enough to pounce when it does happen, because there's not much more you can really do. It does rely entirely on that. In the meantime, Van der Kran will be sweating bullets. He's going to sweat them all the way from the conclusion of lap 4 through to the end of lap 10, or as long as he manages to hang on to this little lead over Jordan Ross. It's going to be a long way past the halfway point though now, which will make it a lot easier.
Warwick's got a bit of pace. He's got more fuel on than Burridge, who we think might need two stops. At the moment, I'd put Warwick a very good chance of 4th, and therefore always an outside shot of the podium with a lot of racing at a famously challenging and unforgiving racetrack still to come.
Thinking about where the series and where the calendar is heading over the next few weeks. It's going to be heading to Detroit Belle, which is, I believe, what you're referring to there, David Haynes, and that will be 150 kilometres from the streets of Detroit Belle next week. There's been a very famous Gen 2 supercars track and has been the preferred street circuit of choice. Gen 3 hardware, what's it going to look like when they take to the streets next time out? Okayama as well is going to be an interesting one. Probably a touch smaller on the smaller side, but I would say somewhat similar to Winton in some aspects. Will give us a good look. This is what it looks like at the moment for Travis Hunt. Notoriously difficult to pass Stephen Varga as well, is what he's challenged with.
The soundproofing foam looks like you could scan it as a QR code.
That'd be a sick design to stick on the wall.
Yeah, probably redirect you to Shaver Shop.
He had a little chuckle there. Did you notice that, Dave? Do you reckon that was Dressy who's listening in?
I don't know. He's saying that he's got a couple things to say to you, and that we deserve. Him and the team deserve a bit of airtime. That's wide from Varga again. He's been wide in a couple places on this lap. Travis Hunt's got pressure on him, but where do you pass? How do you pass without causing a monumental accident?
Well, that was the opportunity, and therein lies the difficulty in getting Stephen Varga. He is quite consistently able to make the rear end of his Chevrolet wider than it might look on the surface, and Travis Hunt gets closer and closer and closer. And now, Jamie McKnight's going to buy into the battle as well. And Jeff Thomas has done a phenomenal job. If he's losing force feedback in that car, to manage to maintain contact with these guys is a supreme drive.
Get yourself on the Bilstein Bridge on the Dottingham when this group come around, I reckon, because the patience from Travis Hunt, Jamie McKnight, it might start to wear out, especially what you've seen from Varga, wide in a couple of places, losing time in a couple of places, but not letting them through. So he's costing them time. Some drivers who think they could still gain a couple more positions if they got past him, and absolutely. And I'm sure with the pace and the rhythm that Travis Hunt's settling into, there's a few drivers just up the road, 5, 10 seconds more that he could get, and a few that are going to really need to save that are inside of that top 10 as well. So between Varga, Hunt, McKnight, Whiting, Jeff Thomas, 2 of them could even get inside of the top 10 if they so desired.
We're keeping an eye on as it continues to progress, and Varga's still at the head of this queue. You can just see he is the cork in the bottle.
Really even pit stops from all in this group as well. 47 seconds Varga, 46 seconds Hunt, 46 seconds McKnight, 46 seconds Whiting, 47 seconds Jeff Thomas. They all pitted the same lap. It's all tyres the same age, took similar amounts of fuel. And here they are. Varga beginning to feel more pressure from Travis Hunt, who of course is going to be starting to feel a bit of pressure from having 2 teammates directly behind him as well. Another reason he doesn't want to wait too long to try to set up Varga on the Dottingham this lap.
Oh, he gets in very deep as Travis Hunt collects the barrier way too deep. So in too hot, he will find the barrier on the left-hand side. Now how wounded is he? Because here comes the opportunity. McKnight will be sniffing like a fish in the water. And the Fishy Motorsports crew, with Michael Whiting in behind, will sense an opportunity as well. So that opportunity that was coming their way is now gone again, because Stephen Varga has managed to get far enough away He waited and he waited and he waited. He waited 25 kilometers for that opportunity, and he's going to have to wait 25 more.
Surprised he got away with as little damage as he did. You can see it there for Travis Hunt. But it's like all the steering is straight. Just kept going. It's just kept in. Slipstream of Stephen Varga. High speeds for the rest of them in the tow as well. Michael Whiting just licking 300 kilometers an hour on the downhill after the bridge before you really have a long curving braking zone here to really knock that speed off all the way down to about 80 k's an hour.
I would call that the trickiest braking zone in motorsport, because it is snaking your way up and over hills with no driver assist. Michael Whiting got a much better run off the final corner, so we could see some teammate action on the run into turn number 1. They will pull side by side. McKnight a little bit earlier on the anchors. Can Whiting get the car pulled up at the apex of turn 1? Yes, he manages to do so. Does he clear his teammate? McKnight's not giving him anything. Hunt's caught Varga up ahead as well. Can't get the power down. So after 25 kilometers of waiting, they got to the Doddinger and all the opportunities went by the wayside. Whiting found one. Hunt found another. Hunt couldn't get it done. Michael Whiting did. So now it's Whiting's turn to keep that pressure on Travis Hunt, keep that pressure on Stephen Varga. Change for second and third here. Jordan Ross goes ahead. No fuel for Ross to save. Van der Kraan maybe thinking about it, maybe thinking if Ross has got a bit more pace than me, that's the way to go. But they're almost 10 seconds behind Jason Bentz. They're only going to catch him with a mistake from Bentz at this point, I got to think, unless an unleashed Jordan Ross unleashes something diabolical over the next 4 laps. Still on in that next battle pack as well, the one that we were talking about moments ago. Varga has made a couple more mistakes and Travis Hunt's caught right back up to him. So he is walking wounded in terms of tyre life at the moment, but walking wounded behind is Travis Hunt's left front corner of his split up. And the opportunities for GP style racing are just about to end. The final one on the run through the chicane here, but it's very difficult to get it done at the chicane. No opportunity here this lap, which means it's going to be another 22 or so kilometers before you get back to the Doddinger and give yourself that opportunity. It's going to rely on a mistake once more. Patience, and more patience from Travis Hunt. And he will be kicking himself a mistake just before his prime opportunity.
Just missed his brakes there. And again, you don't need to be right at the rear bumper of the other guy. You just got to be within 2 or 3 car lengths, which I thought is where he was, and he overcooked it a little bit. We didn't see exactly what his perspective may have looked like, but I think he can pass on the way up to Flugplatz. I think he can pass on the way to Schwedenkreuz. We saw people pass on the inside of Arenberg. Just here on the Doddinger, there is a couple of places where passing would be possible. So this is how he did it. So through Stefan Beloff S here, everything looks fine. I think he's close enough. And then, is it the tyres on the grass?
It's just in hot. And the steering lock he adds is just a please pull up, please bite, please turn.
He's got an opportunity on the live picture.
So we'll pop back over to the live picture, and he actually lifts down on Stephen Varga at the moment. Continuing to harass. Varga's going to drift from left to right on the track. He's going to try and pinch him down low. Does Varga get the car pulled up? No, he drifts a little bit wide of the apex, but there's not really enough opportunity to get the power down. You're a brave man if you run down the hill side by side right here. But he's going to continue to just paint the rear bumper of the Chevy Camaro ahead and continue to apply pressure. Now is he going to make a mistake at the crest of the hill? Doesn't cover the curb on the left. Doesn't cover all the way back to the right. There is an opportunity to fire it up the inside there. Not enough alongside to think about that one for Travis. He's also going to think about the cars that are in behind him as well. And Jeff Thomas, with the ailing force feedback, if it is continuing to get worse, has finally just dropped off the touch. Back end of this pack, just a touch. Oh boy, it's still happening. Still happening.
What's up the road from this? 6 seconds. David Nash only took 40 seconds of fuel, so Nash either needs to 2-stop or really save. This group can still get him. Troy Stone Street might have to 2-stop. Chris Burridge might have to 2-stop. Cars that this group can still get if they don't trip over each other. And well, it looks oh so possible the way that they're racing.
Yeah, So now it's about patience. Now the tyres are ailing, looking after the rear, looking after the fronts. Pull it up a little bit accurately. If you can't get the job done, you just, you know, lift off a little bit, sail into corners, underdrive a lot, trying to keep the car underneath you and give yourself a little bit more of a tyre advantage to the car ahead. Definitely cannot afford to cook your rears as well at this point in time. Everyone in this group, this would be an adventure. Can someone hand Van Gisbergen the keys to one of these things and tell him to go drive a lap at the ring? Because that would be something to behold.
Yeah, can we get a supercar in the invitational class at the 21st of the Nordschleifer again? It's been, what, 22 years or something? It's about time, I reckon.
Absolutely.
So Ross pulling away from Van der Kraan. Here's Tim Nichols, John Gallen, Rob Chrisdale. Last lap from Chrisdale was not bad.
Oh boy, that was a lot of opposite lock for Tim Nichols. The rear end steps sideways. He's going to lose the spot. Gallen will go through. Chrisdale's going to pull alongside and back. There's contact, and they're both going to get away with it. More contact as well. They're both going to go around. No, Nichols survives. Chrisdale does not.
Don't high-side it on a curb, buddy. Oh, so tough. Dangerous spot to be at Bergwerk there. Car around. Ooh, but I think he's picked up a fair chunk of damage. There's meatball flags out for Goosey and Parker still, but not one for Chrisdale. But that car doesn't look great. It's Darren Goosey.
Maybe Goosey done. Can't see any damage to that car though. It might be a whack on the left front. Might be driving a little bit limp. And indeed it is. So the left front tyre's not properly on that car. That's what's happened for Goosey. Yep. Just got a little bit wide, a little bit out of shape. Runs it in deep.
Bit of suspension damage, maybe?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. He's also doing his fast repair earlier.
What's good for the goose is good for the camber.
Oh. That's brilliant. I love that. As this is another replay of the Rob Chrisdale, Tim Nichol moment. I'll tell you what, Nichols probably just a touch narrow there. Turns in a little bit early. The overhead shot's going to give us a much better picture. Yeah, you know, he's left enough room as Chrisdale. He's all the way to the left, and Nichols turned in.
And Michael Whiting now under some pressure. So McKnight got back past Jeff Thomas, even with the issues he's dealing with. Almost got him. So this is always a group to keep an eye on the Johnny Lahore. Still in seconds. Jordan Ross just a second clear of Matt Van der Kraan there. So you know, I see on what the podium's doing. This is your biggest battle pack, your closest drivers, and it's been exciting to watch.
Is he close enough though, Dale? He was Travis Hunt, and then he just couldn't carry the speed out of the mini carousel, and the car wanders a little lower in the road, just barely keeps it tracking in the right direction. So Varga will survive another lap, and the car for Travis Hunt doesn't appear to be moving in the most accurate of directions forward at this point in time. They are both making time out of Stephen Varga as he punches the hole in the air. McKnight makes some time. Jeff Thomas drags himself back into this one, but no one's going to be close enough to pull off the overtake. McKnight thinking about it, at least shuffling around, just trying to provide some nervousness in Travis Hunt. Forced to lift off a touch earlier, does not want to promote bravery all the way into the final couple corners. It's a recipe for disaster.
Troy Stone Street and David Nash, second pit stops. They're in the lane right now. This group of drivers are all going to move up a spot, and we believe they can go to the end. What kind of pace are these double stopping drivers gonna have? Is the tyre drop off all that much? Best lap of the race for Jason Bentz is an 8:35.6 on his last lap. He's not losing 10 seconds a lap.
And that is going to be night over for Ken Latta. After dramas on lap 1, it's dramas on lap 7 for Ken Latta, unfortunately, and it will be day done. And you can see he's already pulling off the gloves and he's getting ready, waiting for permission to tow.
So he's down at Brightside. Again, it's meatballs, mashed potato, and red cabbage as the Thursday special at the Hoth Food Cafe. Wait for Mark Poynton to go through, and then maybe he can tow. Should be a pretty empty part of the track in 30th position. And trying to show that it's bottom of the map as we look at it. There's only one other car around there. Everyone else is on the GP circuit in the Dottingham.
The interesting thing to think about as well is Burridge and Ullman. What do they do? I'm sure we're expecting Burridge in at the end of this lap. Ullman's a different story. He's only got a little bit more fuel on board.
How much would you expect to pay for Frikadelle mit Pfeffersauce, Kartoffelpüree und Rotkohl on a Thursday at Hoth Food at Brightside?
I'd need a translator to tell me what I'm looking at before I even consider getting to a price. Let's say what? €7?
It's €10.50. That's okay. That's okay for a Thursday special at the cafe.
And resurgence onto the ring, and the resurgence of Stephen Varga at the head of this group. You get the feeling that if Hunt can get through, he'll disappear. But for the meantime, he's just going to stay attached. The margin for second place has started to open up. Jordan Ross got the job done. Now out to a 2-second margin over Matt van der Kraan. Van der Kraan nearly 10 seconds back to Burridge, who we believe is going to pit. Tell you what, Warwick's got a little bit of pace as well. And now, admittedly, it's not going to matter because Burridge is going to have to pit again. But he's driven his way back to Chris Burridge quite well. That's actually quite a good job there.
Warwick is sort of fourth fastest car, and that's where he's going to end up if Burridge needs to get pit again, or if Burridge stays out and mega fuel saves. So yeah, Warwick's working his way up towards fourth place, almost certainly. Chris Miller, Troy Stone Street, David Nash. So Miller, one stop, but dramas. Stone Street and David Nash are on fresh tyres, and they are so confident.
I just wonder whether or not Chris Miller might yield a little bit here and just think these guys are coming on past. And this is the danger on a track position dominated circuit, that you slap the fresh tyres on and you cannot find a way by. And the freshness is just about gone out of those tyres. They will be normalising, equalising, coming back to Chris Miller in terms of pace anytime from about now. And Miller wide. This might be an opportunity. Stone Street might line him up and try and fire it down the inside. This next, no. Doesn't think about it. Traffic just make an impact on the race for Jordan Ross as he catches Damien Cairns. And Cairns is going to let Matt van der Kraan by as well, so it clears both of those guys. And Stuart Hall, we're hearing, is missing a front left tyre at the moment, and he's going to navigate Dan Hall and Brad Doble, catching him at a rate of knots. Great job by all involved there, I think.
Looks ouchy. What we have seen though is that it is super penalising to tow your car here, because it is a long tow. Not a cheap one. It takes a long time before it gets back to the pit lane. So if you can limp it, it's normally better. This is wide from Bergwerk, from Travis Hunt, to try to set up the run up the hill. Now in sports cars and other stuff, it's all flat out. Oh, but that thing is not going to drive its way around.
Stewie he got through the right-hander at the bottom of the hill there, and he looked at it and just went, it's just not going to turn right anymore. He did, to his credit, managed to drag it around up until that point, and eventually came to the decision to pull it to the side of the road. He's just pulling himself further off the track just to give every opportunity for racing to be maintained. Something further's happening to Damien Cairns now as well, who's also requesting a tow. Although I'm not seeing damage to that car.
We have a safety car. Because Damien Cairns, remember, he was just lapped by the top 3. So where he is, you've got a minute and a half, 2 minutes of the whole field coming through before he could tow. So because he was just that lap down, he is in the busy part of the field. Look at them all coming through. We're going to get our first safety car. Jason Bentz holding 80 kilometers an hour. There's Jordan Ross behind him. There's Matt van der Kraan behind him. And it's going to be this before the whole field gets past where Damien Cairns is parked at the carousel before we go green again.
Well, and this hasn't even timed itself nicely for anyone to dive into the pit lane either. So what's happening right now is that Benz is forced to slow it back to 80 kilometers an hour. Chris Burridge will be diving to the pit lane, but what's going to happen for Chris Burridge is that everyone's going to be condensed again, which means any margin that he had to try and pit and overtake people, well, they're all going to be condensed up ahead, and he's going to have to pick them off one by one by one by one. And the delta that he had is going to disappear as well.
Yeah, so for everyone who's looking like a two-stop strategy, this is bad for Burridge, but it's good for everyone who's already made their second stop. Troy Stone Street, David Nash, even Stephen Kennedy back in 27th position. So yeah, it's probably not good news at all for Jason Bentz, but it's good news for Jordan Ross, Matt van der Kraan. It's good news for Paul Warwick, and it could be quite good news for Troy Stone Street and David Nash. Last pit stop lap is on the graphics there, so almost everyone's got sort of 5 or 4, but anyone with fewer than that pitted sort of maybe a lap ago, 2 laps ago, they can use those fresh tyres. They'll be very, very happy.
I'll tell you what, they're catching quite a rate of knots now as well. Tow requests have now just been cleared by race control.
Yeah, so then we shouldn't be too far away from going racing again in theory. If Damien Cairns is going to tow.
So we're up to 16 cars that made back into the queue. Darren Crosby is the next car. They're trying to get reattached to the back end of this queue at the moment. Race control have not said anything about when we're going back green yet. And they're about to have about 5 more cars join the back end of the queue, so
it's a massive delta on the Dottinghua here as well, because those catching can do 250 k's an hour while the lead's doing 80. When you're doing safety car speed through the twistier bits, it doesn't gain as much time for those other drivers. But right now, if we were green flag, Jason Bentz would be doing 280 k's an hour. Instead, he's doing 80, and being caught by many drivers who are going to attach to this safety car train.
There's a few drivers down towards the back end of the field that will get an opportunity to catch up here. I was just looking at Darren Goosey and thinking, oh yeah, he'd love this, but the problem is he's on the GP circuit, so it's not really going to help him out. Darren Lobb has managed to get back out, and he isn't going to catch the back end of the pack, but he is going to make a significant gain in terms of time, and there actually might be an opportunity.
Maybe Burridge saves enough fuel that he just stays out now.
Maybe.
The point that I made earlier is you'd normally be doing 280 k's an hour, now you're doing 80. The fuel saving right now is a fair bit. We are going to resume racing shortly at Jason Bentz's decision. I'd wait till the end of the Dottinghua.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's not going to go any earlier than that, and field is now in the hands of Jason Bentz. And race control have deemed it that he has control of the restart.
Can't drive 80 k's an hour for another 2 laps, can he? He's going now.
Right there. So Jordan Ross has managed to climb his way all the way back now to the rear bumper of the 112. He harassed, he harangued, he was there at the tail end of the first stint. A little bit of a fuel offset has now played its way back towards Jordan Ross. And can he challenge the driver that has been the quickest so far tonight? He's had to cut his way through Orange is going to dive away. There's going to be a few more come in. Allman's going to follow him in as well. So these guys could not make the end of the race on fuel. Now they're going to dive in, and they're going to watch the entire field. What was looking like a strong top 10 finish, you were thinking, for Chris Burridge. Now he sits there. 20th spot is going to go by. He is just losing bulk time. That's the risk you take.
Jordan Ross will smell such a massive opportunity right now. Stay close on the Grand Prix circuit. Close up towards Flugplatz. Close up towards Schredenkreuz. And then put some pressure on Jason Bentz. When they were racing wheel to wheel together, Jordan Ross looked like he could match him. And Jason Bentz had 5 seconds or more in his pocket and some clean air. It looked like he had just a tiny bit more pace than Jordan Ross. But Ross seems consistent enough that he could pull this off. The race is well and truly back on. His drivers with some good tyres deep in the field. Stone Street's now up into 16th, Nash into 17th.
And Stephen Kennedy is right on the back end of the train. He was the last driver to join the back end of the train. Fresh tyres at the end of lap 8. So he has got a huge opportunity. 4 laps, effectively 100 kilometres less on those tyres. Will be a great opportunity for him to see if he can cut his way back through the field. Allman and Burridge are only about 26 seconds off the back end, and here is Travis Hunt, who's been waiting and waiting and waiting for an opportunity to have a crack at Steven Varga. He's had a crack right throughout the GP circuit, still cannot get the job done. Now he'll wait for a mistake. Is Varga in a little bit hot as a chicane? No, he's not. So one more time back out into the ring. Second to last time tonight. They will take each of these turns. And he's just continuing to have to be patient.
Yeah, they're right on Robbie Griffiths now as well, who was just a couple seconds safe of them and doing similar pace. So it grows the group. But Travis Hunt's also gained a couple of positions with those in front of him that had to stop. So these guys are into the top 10 now. Steven Varga 8th, Travis Hunt 9th, Jamie McKnight into the top 10 in 10th, just behind, in fact, almost all over Travis Hunt.
Yep, just etches his way into the top 10 was Jamie McKnight. Beautiful shot across the crest. Watching cars, V8 supercars of that get airborne completely utterly. That's one way to call the tyres off.
Actually, looking at that shot is probably why a modern V8 supercar couldn't do the 24 hours of the Nordschleife unless they completely banned marshals and spectators from that sector of the racetrack. History should not repeat.
No, it should not. Yeah. Surely it'd take bravery. You as a driver, you just wouldn't take that with the nose in the air, would you?
Well, this goes back to a couple of years back. There was that Nissan R32 thing in sports sedans at Bathurst that had 1,500 horsepower, and they posted their telemetry where they had to brake before the kink on Conrod Straight, because if they kept the foot flat, that repeat Mercedes at the 24 hours of Le Mans. It's like, you can't have a race category like that where it relies on the driver sanity prevailing to not create aircraft crashes. Bathurst has already had enough of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can, because safety therein, the driver not wanting to do something silly like that does create the safety, just in a different format. Yeah, it's certainly running against the upper limits of what people want to do and what people think the cars are capable of, but at the end of the day, driver sanity will prevail. The benefit of the sim is that driver injury, much less of a concerning factor, means that we can push these mechanical limits in different ways that we otherwise necessarily would.
Bentz is trying to break the gap to Jordan Ross. It's just at 1 second right now, but here's a high-speed section where Ross could gain some back. Coming out of Bergwerk here. It's critical for Ross, critical for Bentz. Nice lines from both. What Jordan Ross really needs is to gain 3 or 4 tenths in the toe right here and now.
And Jordan Ross did actually set a purple sector in the first ring sector of the lap. So he's managed to find some pace.
We've seen that, haven't we? That a safety car cools the tyres off and then they're super zippy again. Happened at Watkins Glen. Fastest lap of the race was always set on the safety car restart lap.
And lower fuel will also be a significant part of that as well, as we know, down and around, we'll be under 40 litres left in the tank now for these guys. Will certainly promote that, and they're very reliant on fuel weight.
Nash is supposed to be the best placed car on those new tyres, and this probably not going to be a good replay if Bruce Tannock's all by himself in 29th. No. Everyone does that one. That's why that tyres is painted red and white.
Is it a target? Because the drivers are driving to it being a target here tonight.
It's always one of the first places on the Nordschleife that you crash because you carry so much speed in and then it tightens. And this is Nash getting past Stone Street, because Stone Street runs pretty wide out of Bergwerk.
Yeah, I've just seen Michael Whiting failed to get the car to settle into the carousel. So I believe that he's lost just a touch of time. Managed to hang on to spots, didn't change hands in any of those. Again, they close. In the meantime, though, Varga has skipped free at the head of this group, out to 1.2 second margin over Travis Hunt. Oh boy.
Too much drama right there at that corner. Travis Hunt sideways. Stephen Varga in and out of reality. Travis Hunt saves it, gets back on his horse. Varga experiencing the similar issues once again.
Just think about the heat over the last week or so as well. As the drivers have been having crap on sim, heat in real world could be playing havoc on drivers' PCs and causing some of that stuttering is what I'm looking at, the issues with Varga and thinking. But Paul Warwick, I think, has just lost a spot to Wayne Walker. So Walker's managed to find his way further forward and finds himself in 4th spot as it currently stands.
Warwick had a relatively short stop, but then we had that safety car and should have saved a bit of fuel. He's surrounded by drivers who got a little bit more fuel on board with him. So Walker with more, Stewart with more, Griffiths with more. Onto where we go. Stewart and Robert Griffiths could get pretty close to Paul Warwick here.
Michael Stewart's starting to really close in now with that double toe assist that he's getting. Griffiths managing to just cling on to the pair of them. I tell you what, Varga is clear of the tyre now as well, so Travis Hunt's getting no assistance, and his final opportunities to get the job done might be coming in the GP circuit this time by. For this group, they'll be thinking exactly that. There'll be mistakes again at the wrong portion of the racetrack, unfortunately. For Travis Hunt, that'll be preventing him from being close enough to have a stab. Fastest lap of the race. Well, cold tyres. They proved their work into the 8 minutes and 29 seconds. 0.433 for Jason Vance. He burned through the fuel, cooled the tyres off. He's going to go and set himself a new fastest lap of the race.
Oh! Now Michael Stewart's got to work out how he's going to try to capitalise this from Paul Warwick. Wayne Walker gets a bit of respite. One more lap of the GP circuit and the Nürburgring Nordschleife. For a few drivers be looking at their fuel gauges. Potentially Paul Warwick's one of them. Potentially Brad Doble's one of them. First two I can see that are chance of being a little bit short at the end. They file their way through the Schumacher S's for the final time here tonight.
10 laps of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. The GP circuit, probably the easiest element of it, is going to be in the rear view mirror in a few moments. The worst that these tyres have probably felt all night long. Overheated, cooked, worn. They got a respite a lap ago. They cooled themselves off and got back to a point. I'll tell you what, Travis Hunt is going to be disappointed because he was not close enough. He is now back in the tow with Steven Varga ahead of him. But that was probably his best shot at getting past Varga. Now gone by the wayside.
Chris Miller at the start really sets the tone here. Fast through here and then curved braking zone, drops downhill. This is the one that's caught out a whole heap of them just there. Just here, because...
Oh boy! Speaking about getting caught out, Greg Sharp was caught out right as you said it, Dave, so just to iterate your point. And how about this? Chris Miller, followed by David Nash. And Nash, the head of the guys on fresh tyres, well, Chris Miller's driven through from the rear of the field to be the furthest ahead out of that group as well, got himself to 14th spot. Can Nash do anything about it? 75k is the difference between these guys on tyres, and have a look at the way that Nash can just get to those apexes a lot better. He's carrying speed, but the straight here is narrow, it's twisty, it's very difficult to get alongside, and it very much favours the defensive driver because you go all around the outside at the next corner, which requires a lot of bravery. Nash doesn't have it. Miller drifts a touch wide. Opportunity on the outside. He's going to try and get to the outside, but the grip and the camber of the road favours the driver on the inside. Can't get back to the power. Miller will hang on. Nash crawls all over the curb, but will survive.
Similar thing was playing out in the group immediately behind there, which I'm pretty sure is Gary Buckland ahead of Troy Stonestreet with Chad Lewis, where Buckland was under pressure. Stonestreet not able to really get through. He's clearly got speed, but that's the Nordschleife. Is where can you get down the inside? It's not there, but it's still immense pressure on Buckland for the moment.
Yeah, and we'll continue to try and line him up. Varga once again takes a look at his rear view mirror, and we'll see it. Very, very large and looming. And as Travis Hunt's gotten back towards him, so that battle will continue across the final under 25 kilometres we are now. In fact, it'll probably be closer to 20 k's to go at this point. We'll flash past the 8 kilometre mark, so, well, there's only 17 to go. Take out the GP circuit, there's probably only about 15 to go in terms of racing action tonight.
Love this onboard shot, love the gears, love the speed there, which will nudge 300 k's an hour in the tow, but really drops down as low as sort of 50, 60 k's an hour in a few of these other places. It's everything in one lap at the Nordschleife, and that's what makes it a massive challenge. Kicking the tail out there was Michael Stewart, behind Paul Warwick with Robbie Griffiths, putting pressure on him. Jason Bentz's lead is a slim 2.5 seconds, because a mistake that costs him 1 second will leave him vulnerable on the Dottinghur on this final lap. But he's got just a little bit of time to play with where he can roll the speed and not need to make any mistakes. Jordan Ross is the one who needs to pull everything out through every corner on the remainder of this final lap.
Now, how much bravery have you got in the final lap of the race? Tyres are railing. Tip-in points will be perhaps a touch earlier. Braking points will certainly be meters earlier. And Travis Hunt starts to close once more. He's been quicker through this section of the going on 26 kilometres right here. This has been an element where he's been more comfortable than Varga ahead of him, but he just can't get close enough. Gets on the brakes and have a look at the car dance around on the anchors. Varga pulls the car up nice and neatly. Now he becomes vulnerable McKnight. Last time by, as they head towards the carousel, Michael Whiting couldn't get it stopped and couldn't get it to slide down and into the bold corner. What was a drainage ditch became usable racing surface when someone got brave one day. Now they all use it, and now there's a pass for position further back behind as well. So Chris Miller has dropped a few spots. No, he's only dropped the one. David Nash has managed to find his way by. He's on fresh rubber. And now he'll start to try and pick off Greg Sharp is just ahead of him, and the ailing Jeff Thomas. Remember, Thomas still struggling with those issues related to force feedback at the moment.
Jason Bentz keeps and extends his lead a little bit over Jordan Ross, who's also extending a tiny bit over Matt van der Kraan. Taking a look here at Miller. Very narrow, too much curb through Bergwerk, wide on the exit. Three things you don't quite want to do, David Nash. Great move.
Got the drive out the other side. There's issues here, and Troy Stonestreet just could not get the car to settle down in the bowl.
Oh, you can't do that.
Spots, and then they swap spots once more.
Oh man, he over-unders him through the carousel and then gets too much of it. High-sides the car on the low curb, kicks the tail out and doesn't complete what would have otherwise been probably the greatest pass I've ever seen at this racetrack.
Yeah, and Travis Hunt, again, a little bit too far back. Now we get into the dying stages of the race. The Donninger are only moments away. In the meantime, Jason Bentz has waited a long, long time. He's been quick, he's had pace, he passed a ton of cars last week on the way to his Chubby Buns Burgers Driver of the Day. One award last week, it'll be a different award this week if all he's going to do is not blow the engine, get on the anchors nice and accurately, and he's got 3.5 seconds to sit there and drive comfortably home with. And out onto the Donninger. Warwick has Michael Stewart perhaps a touch too close for his liking. Robbie Griffiths will go along with him. Travis Hunt's blown it. He's over a second back now from Stephen Varga, so Varga is safe. That will mean that Hunt is vulnerable. McKnight and Whiting are going to duke it out for the teammates on the Donninger. But here comes Robbie Griffith. Can he get a little bit closer? Get the job done. Stewart can't get close enough to get the job done as well. All three of these guys throw a blanket over them at the moment. They're about 0.2 of a second apart, lifting a little bit early. Griffiths just couldn't get the car to balance. Bentz will cross the line. He'll pick up the race lead. It's going to be Jordan Ross home in P2. He'll pick up another big old bank of points for him. And if you can't win them for Jordan Ross, you take home P2 as he's already done twice this season. And for Stephen Varga, he will manage to hang on over Travis Hunt just.
David Nash not quite able to get a couple more of those late spots that he was aiming for, but up into the 14th, they're just behind Greg Sharp. Tim Nicol, Chris Burridge, Luke Allman. In tough race for Burridge and Allman, just the timing. That safety car!
Oh no, Tim Nichol's going to run out of gas and not make the start-finish line. And that's why he's slow on the left-hand side. He will get the car back to the line. He might just put the foot on the clutch and just coast it. She's given her last gasp and he will lose spots. He was up 10 spots. He was actually up about 15 spots.
I think he got a tap from behind right at the end there because he coughed and spluttered out of the final corner. Driver behind him got a little bit of the bumper, which then cost his momentum. And there's not going to be much of those tyres left. For race winner Jason Bentz and everyone else who's joining him.
I think this is just a celebration of who managed to survive the ring, more so than Jason Bentz is going to be a race win. But for everyone else, we made it to the end of the lap. We made it to the end of 10 laps. That'll do. Burn the tyres off it is the way that they'll be going down there. Dan Hall's involved. He's enjoying a few burnouts. I can tell you that Jason Bentz is going through the gears. So,
I'm dizzy.
And his rear tyres are hot and exhausted. That's a phenomenal drive. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times under real pressure from Jordan Ross and Matt van der Kraan, and on both occasions, he just sort of showed them a clean set of heels when it mattered off the safety car restart in the phase before the pit stop, and then also his pit stop strategy to take just the right number. So a little bit less fuel than Jordan Ross got him clear. Just enough fuel, though, that he never really needed to save. So he nailed the main key points of the race that he needed to. The race start, the sort of early part of the race, the pit stop, and then that safety car restart as well. All of it exemplary from Jason Bentz. A couple of places where he was under pressure, he could have stumbled and he didn't.
Yeah, manages to lock it down, bring it home nice and safely. Stewie Hall is going to enjoy some isolated time out in the ring. It's not been a pleasant night for him, unfortunately, and there's going to actually be quite a long wait for a number of drivers. Darren Goosey's going to be the last driver home here tonight because he's all the way at the tail end. He's not made the halfway point in the lap just yet. So it's still going to be a good old 4 minutes and change before we'll see him home. Bruce Tennick runs down the Donninger. Remember, he'll have points penalty, unfortunately, for the incident all the way back on lap 1. And we're going to be waiting a fair while for these guys to bring it on home, so we might just take an opportunity to jump through our driver interviews. We'll start at the bottom end of the podium and work our way up. Talking to the driver who managed to get the car home in 3rd spot, and Matty van der Kraan put the car in. I was sitting there, I saw the lap pop up early in qualifying, and I said, held the phone, I'm excited for this one. Eventually got pipped, mate. Bentz was supremely quick here tonight, but I guarantee you would have been stoked when you put that lap together.
Yes, mate, I was very happy and hanging on for a while, but I knew that Jace hadn't put a lap down, and I knew how quick he was here, so I was sitting there in hope, but no, he smashed me, mate. That's a fantastic lap, and I can't really believe he almost repeated it on lap 9 after the safety car.
Yeah, that's some supreme pace, particularly when that fuel burns off and you get some life back in the tyres here, mate. 8.5 minutes worth of lap around here. Some call it hell. I get the feeling Matt van der Kraan calls it paradise.
Mate, it's by the longest mile my favourite track in the world. I just love it.
The lap of grip that's actually available and on offer to us out here tonight, particularly as the tyres ailed, how did you find the tyres sort of wearing? You know, the longest run that we really had on the tyres was right when that safety car kicked in, but it was looking nasty for a ton of people to drive.
Yeah, it was tricky. I had a race earlier in the week and realised that 4 laps they started to struggle towards the end. So I knew to just try and drive it smooth, and you know, I had Jordan up my butt there for a bit, and I could have kept pushing heaps hard, but I knew I was just going to destroy my tyres. He was always going to get past me at his will on one of those straights with a draft, so I didn't push it too hard when he had the opportunity. Slippery, but you know, manageable as long as you weren't silly early on.
The biggest thing is, this is really the first opportunity we've had to chat to you this season. With the new generation of hardware, it looks like it's playing itself into your favour. You look like you've maybe taken a tiny step further forward compared to where you were in the Gen 2 chassis. I mean, Gen 3 hardware. How's it feeling overall?
Yeah, look, possibly. I'm a little more focused, only marginally, however, on race pace over hot lapping. I don't mind a good hot lap. As shows by my Quality V race finishes. So if I focus more on race pace and do more longer runs, I'm sure that improvement in the races will come.
Right, mate. And finally, a bit of a congratulations to you. Who would you like to give us thank you and a shout out to?
Oh, mate, of course, RaceKraft is the major league sponsor, and all the other guys that get on board to make this league happen, the admin, race control, the boys over at Angry Birds, and the boys at Quantum that we do some racing with. And, all the drivers in the league. I've been doing this for, I don't know, there must be 140 races now or something silly, and look forward to it every week, love it every week, and I'm so glad that this league exists and I get to be part of it.
Mate, congratulations on a solid race result here tonight, and go and enjoy that one with the boys.
Thanks, Scotty.
Take a step further forward, and David Haynes has got time for a little bit of a chat with Jordan Ross.
Well, a couple of really good moments there for you, Jordan Ross. But if I look at the whole 10 laps, I think I pinpoint the pit stop as maybe a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I put an extra. I put a heap of extra fuel in. So that was a stuff up on me. I just let it keep fueling, and I didn't even I didn't have my fuel set up properly. But I don't think it would have made any difference. I think we probably all finished where we were going to finish, and Jason was so fast. It was he would have just pulled away anyway. So well done to him, and well done to Matty.
Then that safety car did give you the gap back, and he was monumentally quick on the race start at that point.
Oh yeah, I think he was 2 seconds faster on that lap than me. So yeah, he was in a class of his own tonight, and congrats to him because none of us, I don't think, could have kept up with him in that first stint. I don't know if he made a few mistakes or whatever. Got up close to the back of him after the first fuel run. He was I think he might have burned his tyres or something. But after that safety car, he was gone, mate. I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, well done on your efforts across the qualifying, across the racing. This is a really, really difficult track to race in GT3 cars. So it looks even more challenging in these longer braking zones, more places where you need a little dab of the brakes, need to get out of the throttle, need to be so careful, rolling your momentum across the blind crests and everything. It's just incredible challenge, this racetrack.
Oh, it certainly is. I've never driven around here before. Before this week. So I don't know how many actual laps I've done this week, maybe 15 or something. So, at the start of the week, I think I was I think my first full lap was like an 8:52 or something. Even yesterday, I think I did the best I did was like an 8:36. So definitely improved day on day. Just getting the flow of the track right. But yeah, I'll be glad to. It was fun, but I'll be glad if I don't race here again for a long time.
I'll boo that attitude, but once again, congratulate your effort, your persistence, your resilience here today. And amongst the top three of you, there was a lot of time where it looked like no one else could quite hold a candle to what yourself, Jason Benson, Matt van der Kraan could do with this combination.
Yeah, off the start, I sort of outbraked myself, and luckily no one turned down, and we all survived because that would have been on me. But us three, once we sort of got ahead, we were sort of pulling a bit of a gap. But Matty was really fast at the start, and but I think he's probably wasn't as good on his tyres as Jason and I. But yeah, it's definitely I'm definitely worn out, and my arms are definitely I probably need to go ice them now. They're so worn out.
Well, congrats once again, and we'll see you some other races in V8 Vets this season, Jordan.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for putting on all your broadcast every week. Cheers.
Good to see you, mate. All right, we'll take a step further forward to the top step of the podium, and it's going to be last week's Chubby Buns Burgers Driver of the Day. Takes steps out of the other awards and takes a step onto the top step of the podium. The pace has been coming, Jason. Haven't necessarily had the most luck thus far this season, but tonight you went out there and stomped them all. 1.5 seconds clear to grab yourself a pole position, and then you bombed the start.
Oh, that's an average start for me. Thank you. No worse than any other week. So. Shocking at the start. Got to work on the start, but
absolute supreme pace when it comes to the Nürburgring around here. So that says to me you've done quite a number of laps over the years. I mean, the unique challenge of such a long layout obviously requires driver confidence in each and every one of those corners, but the supercar around here, we just heard John Ross saying, look, I'll be quite happy if the car never comes back here, to be honest.
Yeah, I love the track. Bring it back again. I loved it when it was here, I think in season 12 or 13 when they did it. But yeah, great track. It's certainly a driver's track. It's not much for racing, it's more for challenging yourself. But
in terms of things, I had to get the elbows out to get a couple of passes done, really supported by the drivers alongside. I mean, it's been a return to a little bit of form for you. I mean, you've had Brian Borg along in the spotter's chair each and every week. How useful is it to you to have, such teammates around you, guys that are really supporting you to find your feet here in the Vets?
We constantly argue on the strategy. No, we don't. No, it's good having Borgie there. gives me a bit more of an idea of what's going on around me and what I need to do when I need to do it.
Oh, mate, tough and tricky here at the end of the night. I mean, they handed you the race lead and said, oh no, you've got a safety car. You managed to get yourself out to a 10-second lead. And then it all went pear-shaped when the safety car got called. Good safety car restart, mate. We sitting all of a sudden sweating a little bit more when Jordan got effectively a free kick to get right back to your rear bumper.
Yeah, if I wasn't sweaty enough, I was certainly sweaty then. I just put the eyes forward and head down, and if I did a lap, which I'm capable of doing, I should be able to gap him and gap him more in the second half of the track as well. Which I did, so that gave me safety down the straight and just begin the next lap.
Not only did you gap him, you also set a fastest lap of the race that was just about on par, if not quicker. Actually, I never had a look. What was the time? It was about 0.4 of a second slower than your qualifying lap. So that's a supremely quick race lap by any stretch of the imagination. Jason, congratulations on a race win here tonight. Who would you like to thank?
Better thank Borgie from RaceKraft Simulations, all the guys from XEM, RaceKraft Racing Team, whatever he likes to be called. Yeah, and yourself for doing the broadcast.
Mate, congratulations, and Borgie's just jumped in the YouTube chat and said, that's it, you don't get access to the cool suit next time that you've used that up. So Detroit Belle Isle, Streets of Detroit Belle Isle, no cool suit on offer for you.
That's all right. I didn't have it this time, so he forgot that again.
Business as usual, says Jason Vance. Congratulations here tonight, mate. Go and enjoy it with the rest of the boys.
Cheers, guys.
Well, that is going to bring us to a close here tonight from what is known as the Green Hell and Jason Bentz's Paradise. He takes your race win. Final race results on the screen in front of you. Takes it by 3 seconds over Jordan Ross. Matt van der Kraan comes home in third. Wayne Walker, best result of his season thus far. 4th spot. He will be cheering after that result. Paul Warwick from Michael Stewart, Robbie Griffiths, Stephen Varga, Travis Hunt just could never find a way past him, unfortunately. Jamie McKnight manages to sneak inside of your top 10. Outside of the top 10, we get over to 11th spot, which would be Michael Whiting and Jeff Thomas. They were in that little group as well. Thomas falling backwards a little bit with the issues with hardware for him, unfortunately. Greg Sharp from David Nash, Chris Miller, Troy Stone Street, Gary Buckland home in 17th spot, Chad Lewis and Dan Hall climbing through after starting at the tail end of the field, not setting their qualifying time. Stephen Kennedy did slap on fresh tyres for a surge at the end. Outside of 20th spot, John Gallen, Christopher Burridge, man, he just couldn't recover. The fresh tyres weren't quite enough to grab a whole bunch of spots. Gets back to 22nd spot, which was at least a gain in those final couple laps. Luke Allman just in behind him. Rob Crisdale from Tim Nicol, Darren Crosby, Darren Lobb had a very, very rough night. He was not happy about that one. Bruce Tannock alongside of him, also rough. Mark Poynton managed to stay on the lead lap after Drummond's on lap 1. Stewie Hall managed to make the finish line, which I'm very surprised about. That car was looking significantly worse for wear in 30th. Darren Goosey also managed to stay on the lead lap. Brad Doble, first car, 1 lap down. Something went wrong there for Brad. Damien Cairns, Ken Latta, and Matty Parker, your retirements. And I believe no points for either of those 3 drivers as they needed to make the conclusion of the 8th lap of the race. So there'll be no points on offer for those guys. In terms of racing action, next week is probably going to be a blockbuster. The Fountain on the streets of Detroit Belle Isle is going to play host to 150 kilometers and the first time that we go street circuit racing in Gen 3 hardware. This one will be one to keep your eyes on because these cars have made me feel like you're a lot more confident to get the elbows out, but it's going to take bravery, it's going to take commitment, but also a lot less grip. How will they fare over the curbs? Well, they fared quite well over the curbs and the bumps here at the Nordschleife, so that says this should be a great package to go racing from the streets next time out. David Haynes, street circuit racing, a V8 supercar, seems like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, Detroit's basically Townsville if Townsville bordered Canada. That's my feeling about what sort of 60% street circuit, 40% a little purpose-built and sweeping, but the walls are still super close. It's a track that I quite love. It's a good view, and it is quite a change of palette from the Nordschleife. It'll be good.
Yeah, and there'll be a few drivers here that'll be looking for a palette cleanser, so Detroit Belle Isle might give us that. We're going to announce tonight's driver of the day on behalf of Chubby Buns Burgers as well. Chris Miller managed to cut his way through the field. He'll be seeing his stocks rise as the pink fishy motorsports machine had a rough old challenge, failing to set a qualifying lap, but when you're at the Nürburgring, anything and everything can sometimes happen. Managed to make his way up 15 spots. Starting at a 30th, that will do in terms of his performances. Enough to get him at Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day. Righto, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of our sponsors, on behalf of the team behind the scenes here on the broadcast, Dan Yeaman, big shout out to him who does our broadcasts most weeks and got back from a holiday just in time to broadcast for us here tonight. Thank you very much once again for joining me, David Haynes, as well. And on behalf of the series sponsors, RaceKraft Simulations, your proud partner for the naming rights sponsor, the V8 Veterans, Logitech G, Nova Sim Sports, Parramatta Isuzu Ute, Player One Sim Gear, LGC Images, Chubby Buns Burgers, and SimSpeed on board to get you driving with their great glove products. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap from the Nordschleifer, and we'll be back again next week for the streets of Detroit Belle Isle.